If you've ever watched Mean Girls, you know what it looks like when a bunch of small changes come together to create a sudden, giant catastrophe. One minute you're replacing Regina George's face cream with foot cream, and the next you're full on plastic. You might think all those little choices don't matter too much, but before you know it, you're walking down a dark hallway in your army pants and flip-flops, and there's no turning back. If we keep going down some of the unsustainable paths we're on, that's gonna be us, heading down a dark path of conflict, social unrest, scarce resources, and unpredictable environmental change. But while that can sound scary, there's an opportunity here. When things get rough and change is afoot, we have two choices. We can wear pink on Wednesdays and take it lying down, or we can come up with new ideas and try to make our changes work for the better instead. Cause let's be real here, nobody can stop Regina George or climate change either, but it's not too late to put our feet down and try to save the school. Hi, I'm Miriam Nielsen, and this is Study Hall Sustainability. Let's rewind from Mean Girls a little bit, like over 500 million years. Hundreds of millions of years before Pangaea, a different supercontinent called Rodinia was fracturing into smaller land masses. And as the theory goes, that caused some big changes. First of all, it turned the one big ocean into several smaller ones, making it easier to dump more rainfall on land. That extra rain started weathering the continental rocks faster than ever before, and rock weathering consumes carbon dioxide, the same greenhouse gas that's heating up our planet today. So with more carbon dioxide getting stored in rocks in the ocean, things on Earth started to cool down. On their own, each of these changes didn't wreak too much havoc on the planet. Katie could still be friends with Janice and Damien, but then came the volcanic eruptions. As Earth's tectonic plates shifted around, a series of huge volcanoes in what's now northern Canada threw everything for a loop. Smoke and ash and other particles blocked out the sunlight, and all those other changes hit a breaking point. The slight cooling caused by the rainfall in the rocks suddenly became a very unslight freezing. Earth's temperature plummeted, and both land and oceans were covered up with ice. What was once a regular Rodinia was now a fractured snowball Earth, and there was no going back. This story is an example of an environmental tipping point. Small, gradual changes that might seem like no big deal start to pile up and make the system more unstable. Eventually, that instability leads to a drastic change, which is hard and sometimes impossible to reverse. Now in our way post-Rodinia industrialized world, we've been making lots of changes within our environment. These might seem small, a few million tons of carbon dioxide here, some deforestation there, but sooner or later, and probably sooner, the burn book of climate change is getting tacked up on the walls. Experts have identified 26 environmental tipping points, including the collapse of Antarctic ice sheets, the death of coral reefs, and loss of mountain glaciers in South America. And when they happen, they have the potential to trigger a domino effect that makes other tipping points more likely. For instance, if one Antarctic ice sheet collapses, that means there's less bright, reflective snow and ice bouncing sunlight back into space. So Earth absorbs more heat, which causes other ice sheets to melt more quickly. Melting ice sheets also puts more cold water into the ocean, which slows down currents and could even stop them altogether. And once an environmental system passes its tipping point, the changes can be irreversible. We can't just stick the Antarctic ice sheet in a freezer until it firms up. The planet will be fundamentally changed. And because human-made systems depend on environmental systems, passing those tipping points is bad for us too. Unfortunately, glaciers are already melting, coral reefs are already dying, and as the environment becomes less predictable, our societies and economies will too. We're already seeing things like mass migration and political unrest as climate change puts more stress on human systems than they can handle. So solving these problems isn't as simple as just kicking off the army pants and flip-flops. In addition to stopping the changes we can, we need to figure out ways to prepare for the ones we can't. That sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, but the prospect of these really dire events can, and does, catalyze us into action. It's like when Regina George posted the burn book all around the school, and it could have been a total disaster, but in the end, it fixed everything. We'll call these social tipping points to differentiate them from their environmental frenemies. Social tipping points happen when our attitudes and behaviors about the environment change for the better because of new insights and values that change over time. They help change behaviors that are bad for the environment and move us towards systems that are good for it. Imagine you're a fifth-generation lobsterman in Maine. Almost every day you're out in the water long before the sun comes up, checking and resetting your traps. You mostly have your traps in the same spots your dad had them, and where his dad had them, and where his dad had them. Except that you don't catch as many lobsters in shallow waters as they did, so over time, you've moved more of your traps farther out from shore. Even then, more and more often, when you bring your catch in to be weighed, you find yourself with a smaller haul worth less money. And you know it's the same for all the other lobstermen. In fact, a few of your friends have given up their lobster licenses and boats altogether. Then, on a rare day off, you see a news clip on TV telling you that due to higher air and ocean temperatures, the West Antarctic ice sheet is approaching collapse. You do a little more research and you discover that rising air and ocean temperatures aren't just bad for Antarctica's ice sheets, they're bad for lobsters too. So you find out a little more about what's causing those rising temperatures, and you come up with a plan. mission. Soon, you and your friends unite to form Lobby Stirring for Sustainability, an organization dedicated to lowering carbon emissions, cooling off the oceans, and protecting the lobster supply. You write up documents, set goals, and make plans, like setting up ride shares to the docks so fewer lobstermen have to drive to work, and raising money to replace the diesel-powered lobster boats with electric ones. As more and more lobstermen join the movement, your little coastal town becomes a hub of sustainability activism. Here, the environmental tipping point of warming oceans and the collapsing ice sheet leads to a social tipping point. The lobster workers band together and fight for sustainable change. One thing that can push us towards social tipping points are smaller changes, called leverage points. I know, lots of points in this episode. I'm trying to make a point. Leverage points are specific places where we can focus our actions to eventually create larger changes. Like when Ms. Norbury makes the girls do trust falls in the gym, trying to get them to be nice to each other. They put pressure on certain groups or ideas to make a certain kind of change. Lately, the US government is focusing on the leverage point of renewable energy. In 2022, the government passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which provided $400 billion for renewable energy development in the US. It's the most money the US has ever put toward renewable energy. And that isn't just good news for the climate. Leverage points like this have a little extra oomph because they also drive positive social change. Like, in this case, the government is giving tax breaks for electric cars with batteries that are mostly built in the United States. The plan is to grow the domestic battery manufacturing industry, which will create more decent paying jobs and help reduce worker exploitation in other places in the world. So not only will this put fewer gas-powered cars on the road, but it'll also help people transition to working in a clean energy economy. This isn't just a plan to slap a much-needed bandage on climate change. It's also a strategic way to get people involved and show them the benefits of acting sustainably. And leverage points aren't just a government thing. Individuals can use them to make a difference too. For instance, you could share your spring fling crown or start a community garden to grow local food. Your little garden might become a leverage point that encourages people in your community to build relationships with food and the environment in other ways, like by composting or planting a garden for pollinators. Overall, when we use leverage points to show that acting sustainably makes a real difference, people are more likely to support more sustainable changes. And when we use leverage points to change our systems, we help them shift into a new state. But in a good way. Crossing environmental tipping points can make life way harder, but we can use social tipping points to turn our systems around, making things better for humans and the environment. This process is called a sustainability transition, and it focuses on making the systems around us more sustainable through social, institutional, and technological changes. To work in the long run, these transitions have to tackle the weak spots in our systems and transform them into strengths. For instance, New York City is currently vulnerable to flooding and extreme heat, which are becoming more common as we increase global temperatures. Right now, heat kills more New Yorkers than any other kind of extreme weather. So an initiative like Plan NYC outlines the needed changes to multiple parts of the city system. New York has grand plans to upgrade buildings with renewable energy, create more green spaces, plant more trees for shade, provide options for clean transportation, and train workers for jobs that keep our sustainability initiative going. So even when the flooding and extreme heat arrive, the city will be ready. At least, that's the idea. As it stands, NYC's transit systems still suffer when it floods, and the planned tree canopies and rain gardens are still works in progress. Like, there are 3 sad piles of dirt waiting for shade trees on my block. Integrated transitions like this are hard because they force cities and communities to give up on the old habits or regimes that make it hard to adapt to environmental changes. In many cases, we're really used to these old regimes, and because they're so familiar and feel much cheaper, they can feel better than new sustainable solutions. Like, maybe it would be easier to just keep your head down and let the plastics keep ruling the school. This attachment to the old ways is called a path dependency. And that's why tipping and leverage points are so important. Accepting that our human systems are connected with environmental systems can motivate us to shake off those path dependencies and old regimes and take positive steps toward a more sustainable future. And when more and more people get on board with these changes, the limit does not exist. Even though change is hard, it comes with big rewards, now and in the long run. Climate change is already pushing us towards social tipping points, and the actions people have taken in response has helped create cleaner air, safer homes, new jobs, and growing businesses. We might not be able to get back to the old pre-industrial status quo, but if enough of our systems make these thoughtful, sustainable transitions, we can move forward into something even cooler. Katie can be friends with Janice and Damien again, sure, but Regina can join the lacrosse team too, and Karen can become a weather girl, and all of us can have a future that's healthier, safer, and more resilient. If you're enjoying this series and are interested in taking the full Study Hall Sustainability course and earning college credit from ASU, check out gostudyhall.com or click on the button to learn more. And if you want to help us out, give this video a like, comment your favorite Mean Girls scene, original, musical, or musical movie, and smash that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you next time.